Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Man Corner. This is Todd Dammit. Today brought to you by Dammitware. My guest today is an old friend of mine as long as I've been in Las Vegas. This guy, I saw him play in hockey arenas back in the day and been lucky enough to share the stage with him. One of my favorite human beings on the entire planet, a legend, and for some reason still looks exactly the same. You'll see me talk about all that. From Slaughter, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Raiding the Rock Vault, Burning Rain, my dear friend, Blas Elias.
Blasey.
Hey.
Man, it's so good to see your face. It's been 6 months. I did the math on that. On the 14th of this month was 6 months since Rock Vault we did together. You were on the last Rock Vault show, right?
I was, and we didn't know it was going to be the last show.
No, I know.
I was scared. I mean, if you remember, I was a little worried because I had just come back from that Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yeah.
And I'd been really sick. I didn't know if that was going around back then, but I was a little worried because we do the meet and greets every night,
Right.
And so I opted out on the last night of doing the meet and greet just because I didn't want to bring it home to my family if it happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, none of us knew that would be the last.
Did you ever get tested? Do you know if you've ever had any antibodies?
I got tested for the antibody test just recently, because I thought, because there's a few other people that were on the cruise that had similar symptoms, and got really, really sick.
Oh, yeah.
I got real bad with, all this, I have the bad coughing and
like lungs? Was it your lungs and stuff?
Lungs real bad. I mean, I had to go to the doctor. I had like a pre-pneumonia. I've got, slight scarring in my lungs apparently.
Jeez.
I had it pretty bad. Dana had it, Blando had it. And some other guys, that were on the cruise had it. So I thought, maybe it was going around. I had the antibody test just a couple of weeks ago, and they said it didn't show it, but my doctor says the tests aren't always accurate. So who knows?
Right.
It's possible. I kind of hope I did.
Yeah, I know, right? I've known quite a few people who've had a really nasty cold earlier in the year, and they'll just kind of go, oh, I've already had it. And I go, well, have you? I mean, there's every year there's flu-like and pneumonias and things that go around. So who knows? Yeah.
And some people get it and just sail right through, and some people get it and,
yeah,
have,
it lays you out. Yeah, it's the worst. Yeah, well, knock on wood, I'm glad your family is safe. I know you.
Thanks.
Last thing you want to do is expose your family. My God.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
you, man. Like, it's
been
a while.
I know.
Had a really good run the last few years between Rock Vault, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, started back doing Slaughter shows.
I know.
And I had been doing Blue Man Group before that. So and Tenors of Rock. So I was doing all these shows. My body was breaking down. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was one period I went through probably 6 months without having a day off.
I bet.
And and I'm incredibly grateful, man, and lucky to have had that. But it was at first, it was like a nice break to not have to play every day. You know what I mean?
Same here. I was the same way. Even mentally, just to kind of like, I don't have to be somewhere. I don't have to call somebody, return an email, whatever. It was just kind of like, okay, so I can just chill. Yeah, that was really weird.
It started to feel weird. Like, oh, I got to get panic. I got to be somewhere.
I know.
But now it's getting a little ridiculous, man. I'm ready to get back.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, and the other thing about you is you're such a healthy dude. You run, you keep in shape. And that's sort of, were you like, so as your body's breaking down, are you still like getting up and like getting out there and running and all that?
Trying. Yeah. I mean, I always try, it's hard, like on the tour, like on the DSO tour, I usually start off, with a few of the other people working out every day, running every day, run the stairs in the arenas and all that. But then as it kind of starts to wind on, like we'll do 8 shows a week, an average 2.5 hour shows there. So, I start having to cut back a little on the working out.
Oh, I can't imagine, because the gig itself has to be a workout, at least even a mental workout. Yeah,
it's quite a, it's definitely a workout, man. Like it's 2.5 hours we play, and we do like averaging 8 shows a week. We'll do 2 shows a day sometimes, the matinee, and
yeah, that's right.
late show. So we're playing 5 hours. I'm playing up there, with fire,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
around,
exactly.
breathing, through the smoke. So it's hard, man. You got to, you got to keep your lungs in shape.
You're not phoning that in any way, shape, or form either. Like they
Yeah.
throw down. I'm always impressed by those shows. It's no joke at all. So I wanted to start with, so I saw you with Slaughter opening for Cinderella. Do you have any concept of what year that would be? 90.
I want to say it's 91.
91. That sounds right. So the funny thing is this: when I
I
finally, that sounds right. 91 sounds about right. Maybe 92. You could be right. I remember like when I finally got to meet you in Las Vegas, I said, I think this whole story about him being in Blue Man Group is bullshit. I think he's been frozen in time like Austin Powers or Captain America, because he looks exactly the same. It's like the ongoing joke is always like,
as do you.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. There's a lot. Vampire. Yeah, exactly. It's just staying out of the sun. You're out there running. I'm just hiding in the shadows. But no, it's like, it was quite a testament to be like, when I came to town to Las Vegas, and it's like, Blas is in Blue Man Group, and I go, oh, cool. I mean, it says a lot about your prowess as an actual musician, because those gigs, again, are no joke. They're not meant for guys who are like, he played drums in a rock band, and now he's, that's usually the end of the story once that kind of wraps up. But for you, it's like you were able to turn it into a whole other career. That's so
that was a weird, I mean, so a bizarre transition going into that, because I had been doing my whole life, since I was a teenager, I've been doing Slaughter,
Yeah.
Kind of my identity, who I was the drummer for Slaughter, and
of course, yeah.
So it was pretty.
You still probably get that on a day-to-day, at least.
Yeah,
on
I
a
still
week
feel like that's it's a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking to the guys, and we're probably gonna do some more touring, hopefully this spring. But
awesome.
But right around, it was 1998 when Tim died.
Yeah.
And we had all at one point talked about maybe taking some time off, and we made a really great record with Blando. And I was just listening to it the other day, and not many people get to hear our later records, but
yeah, weird
really
times.
Great stuff we did,
Yeah, that was great.
But I think after all that, like, we didn't have time to really grieve, any of that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Tim passed away right before we were scheduled to start a tour, and so that's why we had Blando, who was our sound man, who we knew and were friends with, join us, because
he was a great guitar player, coincidentally.
Great guitar player, great singer.
Mm-hmm.
But we need someone who was a family member to be out with us, and so we continued, but we never really had time to grieve. We were right back out.
No.
And so we did a couple more tours that were good, but I think we'd all needed some time. So we're taking a break, and I went to a friend of mine had some tickets for Blue Man Group, and I went and saw it. I just fell in love with the show. You've seen it, and it's
of course
amazing, especially back in the early days, man. It was just magical. It was
that at the Luxor at that?
Luxor. It was a big room. We had 7 drummers.
Wow.
No, 4 drummers, but the band, I think, was like an 8-piece band. And where all the drummers are playing together, and 2 of them are standing up, 2 of them are sitting on drums. We kind of rotate around, and we're jumping and playing like taiko style drums. It was an amazing experience.
Totally.
So I saw the show, I loved it, and just happened to be, that they were just starting to blow up. The Intel ad for Blue Man just came out, and so they were adding shows, and they needed another drummer. So it was perfect timing for me. But right after I got the gig, Dana called me and says, "Hey, I know we were gonna take a break, but we just got this tour with Poison offered to us in summertime, And I'm like, So that first summer, I played Blue Man Group during the week. I fly out and I play the Slaughter shows with Poison on the weekends. And,
oh wow!
No days off, just back and forth. And after
and you probably got small kids at this point already, or
no kids at the time.
Oh, no kids. Okay, well, yeah.
But I wanted to start a family, and it just seemed like a good transition after that tour.
Absolutely.
Had to take some time, and Bobby Rock, who we go way back. He was my kind of mentor in high school. Drum teacher. He was like the drum hero in Houston. So he stepped in to play with Slaughter, and they kept on. I went on Blue Man Group and got married, had kids, started a family, and so it was a good way for me to transition, into that period of my life, But I missed all those days. It was weird because I stopped. Life took a different turn for me, and I was focused on.
How old were you when you old when you started, like, say, Blue Man Group? How old were you? Were you even 30?
I must have been like 30, 31, somewhere around
Okay,
there.
so you were pretty damn young. Yeah. Really.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And yeah, so, I kind of, put all my focus on my family, my kids, and I stopped playing rock music pretty
I
much.
remember I remember talking about this because remember when we came and had you play with our band
Yeah.
years later. I remember you saying, like, after the fact, you told me you were kind of freaked out because you hadn't played rock and roll in like 10 years or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, that was, yeah, I mean, I was so far removed from that life. Like I kind of lost touch with everybody, kind of lost my rock chops a bit, I mean, Blue Man's a great
None of us would ever
thing. It's
notice
just
that.
different. Like we play more tribal drums there, so
Sure,
you're
yeah.
not playing the rock groups. So I kind of, I was a little scared, man. That was the first time when I played with you guys in, Sin City Sinners, it was the first time I'd played in that context, and, over a decade probably, and so I was pretty scared, honestly, and probably not very good.
I would never know had you not mentioned this to me like 10 years later. But did you did you feel like it was like a bike? Like you got back on it and you were like, oh yeah, especially when you're like, we had you playing like Flight of the Angels and Up All Night. We actually had you playing Blas Elias parts, as well as like AC/DC or something as well. But
I mean, it felt good to be up there, but honestly, man, it felt, I knew I was out of my element. Like I felt like, like it wasn't like riding a bike, it's just, you got to be doing that all the time.
I suppose, yeah. I never think, because drums, and I don't have that brain, but I know that the drums are such a physical thing and such a groove thing and a vibe thing that if you step away from that, like you said, if you just step away from playing drums for a while, it's going to take some while to get the barnacles off the hull again.
Yeah, that's why this has been good. This little break's been good for me because I've been able to play drums and practice. Because before I was working so much, playing shows.
Yeah,
I didn't have the time to practice, or the physical ability to practice without like just killing myself. So now I've been able to practice. I play every day, for a couple hours. So my chops are getting better. But yeah, then man, it took a long time. It took getting back in, probably raiding the rock vault. After doing that for a while on a regular basis was when I finally started to kind of feel like I was getting back my groove.
It's so funny to me because I mean, like to all of us. I mean, anybody. I remember that night we had you come out and play, and every single drummer, like Corky Gainsford and Jeff Totora, everybody, Todd Waitzik, anybody that was a drummer in the Blue Man Group got up and played. We just had this big. I remember like literally like it was like a musical chairs of the drummer coming on mid song, and I was like, when you talk about it now, I'm like, you're Blas Elias. Like that's the thing is, if you had showed up, you'd gained 40 pounds and lost all your hair, we'd have been like, oh, it would have been completely acceptable. You know what I mean? Like we would have been like, that's awesome. But when you walked in and I was like, I mean, I'd met you a couple times before, I think just in passing, but it was like, when to actually stand on stage with you, it was like, yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy. Cause I remember seeing you guys playing in a hockey arena with Cinderella. And, that was like, you guys were like at the peak of your ability. I mean, it's Mark, it's Tim, it's Dana. And the Cinderella was fantastic too. I loved both you guys at that time. But I want to rewind back because I know you came from Texas, and I've always had this thing in my head. I always thought, because of Mark, I always thought you were a Vegas guy. And then I remember you setting me straight, like, no, you were from Texas. So guys like Bobby Rock, who else was out there? I remember you telling me sometime about like the other bands that were around and drummers.
Well, King X was just coming up when I was a teenager. And I was in a band called Black Sheep, and we were actually really good bands. Like Marzi, who's a guitar player, he's playing with X Order now, and he's got his own projects. He's played with Phil Anselmo.
It's like a hard rock band.
Guitar player. He was in this band Black Sheep with these two girls, Linda and Dana, who were just fabulous singer songwriters. And so we were really good. But we'd opened for King's X, who they were friends with, and I just loved. I'm actually in the audience for their first video, King is Coming.
The most underrated band on the planet, straight up.
Absolutely, Doug, man, love Doug.
Yeah.
And Jerry, it was funny because I was on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and Jerry Gaskill and Rod Morgenstein were sitting beside the drum set watching me play, and I was just like, wow, man, these are two of my heroes, man. Yeah. And another one, like Rod Morgenstein, I'd go see him with the Dixie Dregs, you know, at Cardi's in Houston, and he would sneak me in the back door because I wasn't old enough to get into the club, you know. So
That's so
I had a
cool.
history with him, you know. But anyway, yeah, Houston, you know, it was King's X, Johnny Douglas, who he played with Aerosmith, you know, he was Joey Kramer's tech, but Tech was stepped in when he was able to play. Who's also an amazing artist and paints all these, you know, amazing. You know,
I know him well.
stuff.
We share a birthday.
Oh
Off
yeah,
by a few years, but yeah, he's a really good friend.
Yeah, but he's also a Houston guy. As a matter of fact, he was another one of my, you know.
He was in, what band was he in again? It always escapes.
He was in a band called he was in a band called XOX. Was it X? What was it? No, Destiny was a band when I first saw him.
Okay.
I was in high school. His
But
band
later on, he went on to be in like Rock's Gang or
Kick Tracy.
Kick Tracy.
Yeah,
That's it. Thank you.
Well, I called him for that because you know, I'd seen him. He played at a talent show at my high school in a band called Destiny.
Yeah.
And he was so good. He was like Stuart Copeland, you know, and you know, like John Bonham mixed into one. It's the first guy I ever seen really hitting, man, like, you know, hard.
Totally.
Wow, man, like,
yeah.
And, good-looking guy, like, you know, he came out and says all the girls are screaming, you know. And,
yeah. So I love hearing that because he's so like not that guy now. Like he's such a family man, regular dude. But yeah, back then he was like hair and drums and just a rock star. Yeah.
And so I knew, you know, he, you know, needed a shot. And so I was, you know, recording the Slaughter record. Danny was co-producing with Bob Ezra and Kick Tracy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Wow.
And so they needed a new drummer. And so first guy I thought it was John, you know, and so he came out and did that record. And, you know, amazingly talented band, man.
Oh,
love those songs, you know, great guys. Why it didn't blow up, you know.
That was a weird time, though. I think they were a victim of so many bands that kind of like it was the tail end of that thing and a new thing came in. And that's to be expected. So
I think they were actually ahead of their time.
That
they
too.
came out a few years later, you know, because they were a little darker.
They were, yeah.
They were kind of, I liken them more to like Alice in Chains, you know, but had a lot of depth, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows why that didn't happen, you know.
It was a weird time. A lot of things got, you know, just, it was like the baby went out with the bathwater, unfortunately, at one point. But so when you were a kid, when we rewind to how you fell into playing music, because I'm always fascinated by like, you know, because it's one thing, music is one of those things where if you have the audacity to do it, it's funny because talking about Johnny Kelly, John Douglas, John's son is an amazing drummer. I didn't know it. Huh. Oh, he's in an amazing band. Well, it'll blow your mind. But it's one of those things where he's raised by John Douglas. You know what I mean? So you're kind of like, what for me, I was like a guy who my dad kind of played guitar, and I sort of picked up a guitar, and I got so into it that it became everything. I mean, so whenever I talk to, you know, someone like you, I'm kind of like, I assume you, Peter Criss or whoever, whatever it was that you saw.
The first concert I think I ever saw was Kiss, you know, and I was a huge Peter Criss fan.
Right.
The first record I ever bought was The Sweet, Little Willie. You know, huge Sweet fan.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was a killer drummer, that dude.
Great drummer. I
Mick,
still, you know, huge influence. Some of his drum licks, like his.
There's a lot of Tommy Lee-isms in there that I always say that, and people go,
Definitely. Tommy Lee had to be a big fan.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of guys, man. Like that band was really influential.
Absolutely,
great songs. I mean, he was a great drummer. Bunny Carlos was a huge influence on me. I learned to play drums to live in Budokan.
Totally,
you know? Who else? John Bonham. You know, me and my friend, we had you know, saved up and got tickets to Into the Outdoors. I think it was.
You saw Zeppelin?
No, it was right before he died. You know.
Oh yeah, so, of course. Yeah, that all got canceled.
So that was horrible.
That's literally 40 years the other day, like a couple days ago, he passed away. Messed up. Yeah. So how long is it when you pick up the drum kit that you're suddenly like making racket with your friends in high school or whatever and like putting bands together and scribbling down logos on your
I just been practicing my autographs.
I love it. Yeah, me too. I had a star in mine, TODD KERNS with a star somehow. I'm like I have the most un-rock and roll name when I always laugh because I'm like Slash and Duff and like, you know, Sting, you know, Todd. Blas Elias is a great name. It's like I don't know any other Blases, you know what I mean? Yeah,
that's my first and middle name. I thought it sounded cooler, you know.
Right.
Gomez my last name, but I shortened it, you know.
That's very showbiz to. It's
But
catchy.
so I was started out playing drums, but then in middle school, I switched to guitar, and I played guitar for a little while. And I
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot you played guitar for a while. Yeah.
yeah, so I did a talent show or two as a guitar player, and then switched back because I just wasn't very good.
Really?
But
Was it because you were more advanced as a drummer that you kind of didn't feel the guitar
no,
was?
I think I was a drummer first.
Yeah.
But then we were playing. We wanted to put together the show, and we didn't have a guitar player.
Right.
So our guitar player had to sing, and so I just ended up playing guitar, for a
Right.
while. But it was never my thing.
No, I know.
I still enjoy playing a little bit.
Well, it's always good to play. Oh, that's the bat phone. Go ahead. We'll just listen in on your phone call, which I think could be entertaining. But yeah, so like do you remember playing your first gigs, like the first talent show or
Yeah,
something?
we played Born to Be Wild. My friend Marzi has a tape of that somewhere. I hope he gets it.
Really? Like an audio tape?
Yeah, an audio tape, a cassette. And then I don't know if we have one of this, but and we played in high school my freshman year. I was playing drums. "Symptom of the Universe" by Black Sabbath.
Oh, no way.
Sabotage it.
Is this like in high school or like in your family?
School, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
That's pretty awesome. I had this, just Frankenstein drum set put together.
Sure.
With, pawn shop drums covered in wallpaper and whatnot.
I love it. That's one of my favorite things because you'll never really recapture that. If you can kind of maintain that high of getting on stage. Like I talked to friends and I was never really nervous. Like I always just loved to get out and play. But the sheer you could fall flat on your face in front of all these people, and that's part of the beauty.
It's sometimes I think in smaller rooms I tend to get nervous sometimes, just because the people are right there.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
But in arenas, I've never been nervous. Even back with Slaughter, I kind of expected my first day, our first gig actually as a band live was opening for Kiss. And
I know, it's
first day, it's just this is where I belong, man.
Absolutely.
So good up there, And same thing, I had been away from that for so long. And then when I picked back up at TSO, we started doing the arenas. I thought, I'm going to be terrified, but man, I just get up there and I feel like I'm at home,
Exactly. I mean, and it's like anything else because you guys, TSO is well rehearsed. It's like training for a fight or something. Like when you get out there, you're kind of like, you're ready for this. So when something like Slaughter comes along, I don't mean to jump over your whole thing because I assume there's a whole Houston thing and you become, you're in a well-known band or whatever. How does the connection to Mark and Dana come up? Because for those that don't know, everybody any rock fan knows that Mark and Dana were a part of the Vinnie Vincent invasion, and that had a whole chapter. I'm sure that's a fascinating chapter, especially from your inside,
Yeah, I heard all about it. I was just talking to Dana because
that's Bobby Rock. Bobby
Rock, yeah. The first time I met Dana was at a club in Houston. I'm going to say maybe it wasn't the Rock Zone or something. I can't remember the club, but he was producing a band called Sweet Savage, who was also a great band from Texas.
I remember that name.
And everyone the buzz was like Dana Strom, is here. He's the guy. You've got Randy Rhoads and Ozzy Osbourne. He's got this whole, history of helping Ozzy start a solo career, and then Vinnie Vincent. Mm-hmm. And so he was there, and I got to meet him there. And that was before I had that connection. But I was in a band, Black Sheep, when we were touring, and around Midwest Texas, and kind of getting my chops together, getting better. I'd actually, it was funny before that, I go back, I auditioned for a band called, it was Cooney. I don't know if you know Cooney. It's Japanese guitar.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and so I auditioned for them when I was just out of high school with Jeff Scott Soto. He had a friend that lived in Houston.
Oh, okay.
He came out and he had heard about me, I guess, and so he came to see me play, I think, in my bedroom.
What was he doing in Houston, Texas, looking for drums
there? And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that level of gig yet. I hadn't done any touring. So when I got in this band, Black Sheep, we started touring, getting my chops together. And so I thought, at that time I was ready. And my friend Gerard, who I played in a band called Nemesis with some other guys, Lex and Doug, who's a great singer. But anyway, we broke up, and he went to California, and he had saw an ad in a magazine for the new band that Mark and Dana were putting together after Vinnie Vincent.
They were doing that in Hollywood or Los Angeles?
Yeah, and so he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm auditioning for this band. They're looking for a drummer too, And so I thought, man, I think maybe now I'm kind of ready for this kind of gig.
How old are you at this point? Because you were young, right?
19, 20.
Damn. Okay. Yeah.
But so I sent out a package that had a cassette tape of me playing and some pictures, and Mark called me and he said, hey, we're auditioning tomorrow. I know you
wow.
can't be here. We can't afford to fly you out. But if you make a videotape, send it to us, then we'll consider it. And I'm like, man, no, somebody's getting that gig tomorrow. And so my mom got me a one-way ticket. And
oh, for real?
So, yeah. And so I flew out. I left a voicemail, said, hey, I'll be there. And so I showed up. My friend Joel picked me up. And
do you know where they were? Do you know where they were auditioning drummers? Do you remember the place?
Maybe SIR.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly. It was something like that. And so I get there. I'm the last guy in, and I play and go through a few different things. Mark asked me to play a solo and some songs and do some stick twirling and this and that, and so I played.
Which was important at the time. You had to be showy. Yeah. That's Tommy Lee's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, who really influenced me was Randy St. John, who was with Sweet Savage, man, a great drummer.
Right.
All that stuff, man.
Yeah. I don't mean to just. I know that at the time it was like.
Yeah.
It just
he was one of the guys, man.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so Mark after the audition said, hey, man, you got nothing to do. Why don't you come over and hang out at the apartment? And, show you around. So I went over and then I just never went home, man. Like literally.
Where were they? Were they living in the valley somewhere? Sure knows, yeah.
But I left everything in Houston. I just never went back.
Of course. I mean, that's the best part of this story, because I think that there's always something to be said. Brent Fitz always says you kind of have to be ready. It's like that whole thing about preparation plus opportunity. It's like when something presents itself, you just kind of got to go. I mean, luckily you're young. You don't have like a family behind or a mortgage.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to be your life, man. If you want to be successful with something, it's like
absolutely.
You can't put, you can't have really like a backup plan. It's got to be like focus.
There's no net for you to fall into. You're all in. How much older are those guys?
I wouldn't tell my kids that now, though.
No, I know. Yeah, no. You need an education. You need a backup plan. Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah. How much older were those guys than you? I mean,
Mark is like 3-4 years older than me.
Okay, so it's not.
Dana's maybe 10 years older, I think.
Okay, yeah. So that's a significant age difference when you're like the new young kid. But I'm sure they loved having like, that young energy and just like, wow, good to go. So how quickly was Tim already in the band by this point?
Tim was not in the band yet. We auditioned a few other people. We actually, how did we audition him? But we talked to Doug Aldrich at the time. I think,
Oh, really? Wow.
Like the up and coming guy.
Sure. Yeah. Doug's a monster.
I think, they really were interested in having him at one point, but he had his own band Lion.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
There's another guy, Gene, who played with Lizzie Borden. We looked at, but we played with Tim, and he came over and he was just the nicest guy. And I think, aside from his playing, which Tim's a hugely underrated guitar player.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Aside from his playing, he's just such a great guy, nice guy,
Totally.
And he got along. And I think that was really important, because they knew from their experiences with Vinny that they didn't want to be in a situation touring with people that you didn't get along with. That's why, I mean, still like, man, like, everybody has their ups and downs and problems through the years.
Sure.
But we still get along great,
But that's a whole huge conversation too, because I've had this conversation so many times, especially living in Vegas, where we as a community of musicians, as well as I do, sometimes it's the guy he may not be as talented as that guy, but that guy's got problems, and that guy who's he's just an awesome dude. He's reliable, all that stuff, and you just always go to that guy, and those guys get all the work. I mean, doesn't say that the guys who are really talented, but talented assholes, they generally tend to kind of vanish or sort of like sink their own boat, unfortunately. So how quickly from there is it like, are you involved in like the songs kind of ready to go? And
so they had been writing, and then we continued to put together demos, and we're working out of Mark and Dan's apartment, and I just kind of moved in, and I think it was a loft they had, and I kind of moved in. Mm-hmm. And so we continued to make demos, and we put together a demo for Chrysalis, and Mark had a leaving member option for Chrysalis. So they got the demo, and liked what they heard, and so they decided to sign, you know, Slaughter to a deal, and it happened fairly quickly. And so, you know, right from there, we just started, you know, went to the studio to make the record. You know,
Who produced that record again? I looked
Dana
this
and
up.
Mark. Dana and Mark.
That's right. They did it themselves. That's right. Yeah, I looked that up the other day, and I was kind of like looking for the, you know, Howard Benson or whoever was around at that time,
Yeah.
Bo Hill. But yeah, no, it was those guys. That's amazing. Where'd they do it? Where'd you guys record it at?
We a few different places. Red Zone Studios was kind of the main place. We recorded the drums for first 3 records at Pasha.
Okay.
It's a, you know,
Spencer Cropper's place.
Frankie Benally.
Yeah.
All the Quiet Riot records was done there. Great drummer.
Yeah.
And I think we did Record Plant, or maybe it was just the demos of the Record Plant. And but mostly the Red Zone and Pasha. But man, it was great, like watching those guys, because, you know, like we lived in the studio, and that's all we did. You know, we wake up. Of
course, yeah.
There. So I was there through all the tracking of all the instruments, the vocals. Man, I loved watching them, and you know, seeing how they engineered things. And Dana, you know, who's was a second engineer at Pasha, you know, worked on some big records, you know, and just kind of seeing the whole machine coming from Texas as a, you know, young guy, just seeing this whole thing, how it all works. And because it was like the guys in the band, I could just be there all the time, and you know, you know, helping out however I could, you know, second engineering, you know, I was the punch guy, you know, back then before Pro Tools, you know, we had to punch in takes. I'm, you know, since I'm the drummer, I got good timing.
Amazing. So this is like, I'm trying to think what year this is, because I know you guys sort of like, I'm trying to imagine what Los Angeles. Oh, really?
Working on that record, yeah.
Yeah, is that long ago? Wow, because the strip was on fire still. Like Los Angeles, the Sunset Strip was. People think it died like on, you know, January 1st, 1990. It was over. It was going hard for like. I remember going down there in the early 90s, and it was still on fire. Yeah. So you were like this kid from Houston, and you just spat out into like big Rockstarville in the most rock and roll street in the world. Yeah. That must have been eye-opening and probably a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we you know, we'd go out every now and then, but mostly, like I said, there was a lot going on. We worked a lot, man. We were in the studio a lot, and then right after we finished that record, Dana was, I'll say it was Kick Tracy back then. He started producing it, so I got to help out, you know, on that record too. You know, some, you know, second engineering and, you know, helping him out and just being around. You know, we worked a lot, you know, and we didn't really get to, you know, hang out. And, you know, honestly, none of us were really partiers, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, there seemed to be a real strong work ethic in that band.
Yeah.
How soon were you guys, go ahead, sorry.
So I didn't drink, you know, don't drink alcohol or, you know, do drugs. Neither the guys didn't really either, you know, and so we just kind of stayed away from the scene. I think, you know, we kind of knew we didn't need any distractions.
Well, no, I think the proof is in the pudding, because that record, I mean, the very first record was massive. Like, it was like, how quickly did it, I mean, I know there's like there's that weird process after you make the record that you're sitting there for a few months, kind of like, when is this, it's always a weird gray area, but when it dropped hard. It seemed like that Up All Night single was massive right away.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty, you know, the first time I heard it on KNAC is like, you know, first time you hear your, you know, song back on the radio, it's like, wow,
absolutely,
this is really happening. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
and,
yeah.
So, but it's funny. I just, you know, Carrie Stevens, who was Eric Carr's girlfriend, you know,
of course,
she has a new book out, but she was best friends with a girl that Mark was dating at the time, and she got our demo and gave it to Eric. Eric gave it to Gene, and I think, you know, I'm not sure exactly, you know, why, but, you know, maybe it was part of it. But, you know, I think Gene, because of his experience with Vinny, kind of thought, hey, you know, these guys had this, we shared this experience we had with Vinny, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I you know, I met Vinny, you know, I'm not going to judge, but these guys apparently both had these, you know, rather difficult experiences with Vinny. So I think they had that in common. So maybe he wanted to help Mark and Dana a bit. And so he heard, you know, the demo, and they gave us our first tour, you know.
And they're not stupid either, because they, you know, I'm you know, regardless of if that was part of the decision making in that, it's also the fact that you guys were hot and up and coming and had some traction and a single that was kicking ass. So I remember at the time, the Kiss Hot in the Shade tour, you guys being added to it was a very big plus. And I'm pretty sure that was a very, I think that was a very smart.
We were on from day one until the end of that tour, man. We did the whole tour. And
That's right.
A few of the bands were on it. Faster Pussycat.
That's right.
Brent was on. I met Brent. band called Little Caesar, which is a great
Yeah.
band. Winger was on, Danger. I can't think of anybody else, but
It's so funny because we know so many of those guys still.
yeah,
And it's fascinating to me because, yeah, I mean, there's so much can be said about Eric Carr. I never got to know
Okay.
Eric Carr, but
Yeah.
it seems like, you know, well, I mean, obviously through everybody you talk to, he just seemed like the coolest,
Nicest
awesome,
dude, yeah.
grounded dude.
Yeah, and he's
And
a big influence to his drum sound on Creatures of the Night.
totally.
Just, you know, his
Yeah.
playing, just like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys went out and did what? Like, how long was that tour?
God, I think it was over a year, you know.
Really? Wow. What a great way to get out there and just do your thing. Again, in hockey arenas and like, you know, getting accustomed to that world. And then when Fly to the Angels, was that technically the second single?
Yeah.
Yeah, because by then that thing is just, it explodes, you know, that whole album. Yeah.
Second video, I think the second single may have been Mad About You somewhat, but that was the second video. Sure, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's such a fascinating thing to witness. I mean, obviously, you know, if you don't know the invasion, the Vinnie Vincent Invasion chapter, it seems like Slaughter just comes out of nowhere and just explodes, you know, which in essence it does, because there's a lot of us can have like a great startup and still not catch that momentum again. There's a lot of people get that one chance and that's it. But the fact that you're able to kind of bounce into the next chapter and watch it just take off. Did you guys?
They made a lot of relationships through that process.
Of course, yeah.
And people, I mean, it was a good couple records they made, you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
I love that stuff. Yeah.
Great, you know. I mean, but when people would meet them, like in the radio and record company, like Dana and Mark were likable guys.
Yeah.
And they were hardworking, and so I think people kind of knew, like, you know, when they came out, like, you know, that these guys are the real deal, you know.
Totally.
So they wanted to give them a chance, you know. They kind of saw what was going on with.
That goes back to that thing from before, like being good dudes, you know, and and people, those kind of people, like the radio dudes and the A&R guys and all that, they deal with jackasses all the time. So when people show up and they're like, these are really good people.
And we've had great relationships with some of the radio and record company people, you know, like, you know, outside of even, you know, music, you know, we had.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So how quickly after the KISS tour, do you guys continue to like go into your own headlining position, or do you just talk about making the next record?
I think we started a Cinderella tour in Europe.
Right.
And from there moved on to Canada.
Yeah, that's when I saw you. Yeah, there you go. That's it's so great. I mean, again, Cinderella was sort of established by this point, I think third album in or whatever.
Yeah,
so
they were so good. Like, listen to those guys playing live, man. God,
I know.
A great band. You know,
a really underrated band. Like, everybody kind of thinks of them as, oh, they're one of those 80s metal bands. You know, I go,
great musicians, great songs, you know. Yeah.
Real classic, like Aerosmithy, AC/DC type kind of thing. But they got even more bluesy as time went by.
They were different from us in that, like, when you saw them live, like, they sounded like the record, man. They really, like, they were really good. Whereas us, like Slaughter, we were high energy, but not necessarily like you weren't hearing the record.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got a single guitar player. So sometimes, you know, the rhythm guitars and things like that aren't there. But, you know, I love that about live rock and roll. If I didn't come here to hear the album, I could just stay home and do that or watch the videos. Yeah. But no, you guys, I mean, again, Mark back then he was untouchable. That voice he was one of the strongest of that whole gang.
Absolutely, yes.
So how quickly after that are you knocking out a second album?
I'd say, after that, I think we did some of our own headlining tour. Like, we started doing like a small arena civic center run on our own. We went out with, I think we had Firehouse open a few shows, and Trickster, and I think even Eyes with Jeff Gazzotto open a show in Salt Lake. So we did that for a little while, and then right back in the studio on the second record.
That's great. So not to fast forward over all this, because I know there's a whole chapter, but Tim's passing. And it's interesting to hear you say that earlier, that his passing was some sort of, like, in a funny way, without probably even knowing it, a sort of a bookmark of kind of like, you know, like you say, because when you're young, you know, and we've all been, I mean, I've been through it too, where I've lost somebody. It's almost like you can't quite compute what you're supposed to do about that, how you're supposed to deal with it. And the thing you do is just wake up in the morning and just keep moving forward. So you go, okay, I guess we get somebody else, and we just keep pushing forward. But like you say, as you do that, you realize that you really haven't dealt with that. And I mean collectively, like the band the three of you especially haven't dealt with what that, and Blando as well. I guess Blando, of course, had a great
They were
relationship
good
with
friends,
Tim as
man.
well.
Tim and Blando were probably closer than than any of us. Like they were good friends too. I think that's kind of one of the reasons why, he just fell into it. Because we couldn't have brought someone in from the outside at that point and still continued on.
No, that'd be really weird. Yeah, it's like going and having auditions at Mates and just kind of like having dudes come down and play would be weird. Were you guys already like relocated to like Vegas at this point? Like, I'm actually curious about your connection to Vegas because, like I said, there was a time where I just assumed Slaughter was from Vegas. I know Mark grew up out here, didn't he?
Yeah. So I bought my first house here. I think it's like while I was on tour.
Okay.
And I'd always been out here. Like when we were making the record, Mark would always drive me back out. I'd stay with him, and we'd just kind of hang out. And he'd kind of show me around. So we all.
It must have been a different Vegas back then. I mean. Yeah,
totally different town, man.
I can't imagine. It must have been like a small town with the Strip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody knew each other. It was really small, and we'd go have steaks for like $1.50 and prime rib and all this. And
at 3 or 4 in the morning, if you decide to.
Yeah, so it was a different town, but I think they always knew they wanted to come back, and so they kind of convinced me and Tim to buy a place there because they knew we all should be together there. So I bought a house while I was on tour, and Tim did too. We all, bought houses kind of in the same neighborhood, and I didn't actually get to really live in that house for a few years.
I bet, yeah.
But so we all kind of just decided that I mean, LA was cool, but like I said, we didn't really hang out in the scene.
I was going to say you weren't Hollywood guys, really.
Yeah, and so and Mark loved Vegas, Dana loved Vegas, and we decided we could kind of base ourselves out of there, and we kind of just rent a house or apartment when we're making records out in LA, and so that's
You guys were so far ahead of the curve. When you think about how many of us are out here now, like all the bands you just talked about that you were touring with, at least one of those guys from one of those bands, each of those bands is out here. Like it sort of became. I've always said, and this is just a complete objective point of view from a guy from another country who moved here. I always say this feels like a distant suburb of Los Angeles. At least we're close enough that I could be there on a 40-minute flight, or I can just hop in my car and be there in 3.5 hours and do whatever I have to do.
You could probably drive with traffic. It's probably faster to get to to LA from Vegas than it is like somewhere up in the North Hills.
I was telling this story the other day. I was playing a gig with Eric Dover, from Jellyfish and all those guys, in Huntington Beach. And I drove out from Vegas, and the bass player looks at me and goes, "How long did it take you to get out here?" And I go, "I don't know, 3.5 hours. I can't remember. It was a good time of day, and I may not have been paying attention to speeding laws or speed limits." And I remember him going, "Yeah, it took me about 3.5 hours, something like that." And he goes, "It took me 2.5 hours to get here from Glendale." And I go, "Yeah," and I go, "I know. It's like LA is it's its own animal that way." And when you look at a map and you go, this will be like a 10-minute drive, right? Well, no, if you leave after 2, it's going to be, or, after 4, it's going to be 2 hours. And you're like, what? But I mean, that's the one thing about coming to Vegas is, the ability to stretch your dollar further. You can own a home, you can raise a family. And that process, I mean, I don't mean to jump over the entire Slaughter chapter because I'm such a, I love that whole thing. But once you get into the Vegas thing, does it change your head as a musician? Like there's a sort of like, because it's almost like now I get up and I go to work in a way, like not in the best way possible, but you suddenly your schedule is not about getting on a bus and going to wherever. It's sort of like,
you get to come home and, like I get to come home and see my kids and wake up and, make them breakfast and get them off to school, whereas,
absolutely.
Before, you're gone for months at a time, which is, it's really nice. Like the Rock Hall show it's great.
Yeah, I became accustomed to that too. Before I joined Slash and the guys, I found myself in this world where it was like, and the other thing about it too was kind of like, hey, what are you doing Wednesday? We're doing this thing. Okay, you just kind of go and fill in for people in that whole world. Yeah. And the scene is so tight with the musicians and whatnot that it really is a lot of fun. But when you find yourself back in rock and roll, which is here's the funny thing about it is you seem busier and more visible because I think Blue Man wasn't necessarily about, you're a member of a much larger troupe, as you mentioned. Like it's kind of like
we were the whole thing. Blue Man was anonymous.
Yeah, and it's kind of like those outfits and the lighting and everything like that is you're part of a bigger show.
Yeah,
But then all of a sudden you're back doing, you're back doing Slaughter shows. You're doing that Burning Rain, oddly enough, in a full circle way with Doug Aldrich and stuff like that. And you're suddenly on these rock cruises.
So weird how everybody's connected different ways, you know.
It is funny, yeah. Like everybody's still around, or like a lot of the guys are still around. Do you find? I mean, what was the sort of like initial returning to sitting behind the drum kit with the name Slaughter with Mark and Dana and Blando? So he kind of returned to the
same thing. Was like with Blue Man Group, you know, we had, you know, like we call ourselves shaman, you know, like we had characters that we played, you know, we're like tribal, the connection between the Blue Man who were otherworldly and humans. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But so we created these characters, you know, and so I had in my head like who, you know, I was, and so I became this character, you know, and so I, you know, it was, like I said, you know, one of my favorite things was the standing drum part, because, you know, you got to jump and dance and do this whole tribal drum thing, and so I became this other character, you know, and you know, you weren't really worried about like your own ego, your own self, you know, because you got to become something else. And so coming back to Slaughter, I'm like, oh no, like they're seeing, like I'm naked. This is me. Like they're looking at me here. Hiding behind this mask. Like, you know, they're looking at me. And so that was pretty scary. Like when I first went back, I'm like, you know, they know who I am. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they've been waiting for you. Like it's Blas Elias. Like I'm assuming that because Slaughter had kind of existed in some fashion with Zoltan and some kind of version.
I think I did one show with them. 2011 maybe was the first time I played back with them. But
was that just kind of like a one-off type thing, or
show,
was there a reason for that, like an anniversary or something like that?
They were playing. It was a show because, you know, Slaughter, Mark, I'm sorry, Dana and Blando and Zoltan were also Vince Neil's band.
That's right.
And so they were doing this this kind of a outdoor festival in Detroit, and Vince Neil and Slaughter were both on the bill. And so Vince, I think, didn't like, you know, his whole band. So they're like, why don't we just bring back Blas for this show? And so I was like, yeah, you know,
that's so cool.
It was another one of those things, stepping in, like, you know, after not doing that for so long, you know, it was a little scary.
Now, was that like riding a bike? Was that bizarre? Like in moments of the show where you kind of like, this is totally normal? I mean, was it like?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, yeah. I mean, I've you know, I felt like this is, you know, what I should be doing. This is kind of, you know, feels like home to me. But at the same time, like I wasn't up to par with what I should have been doing.
Well, you keep saying that, but I mean, anybody who knows you, anybody who's watching, and I would stand beside you in Rock Vault every night, and it was always like, I mean, we always laugh because we have a little kind of like, we all line up, everybody introduces, this is Rowan from Dio and Hugh from Bon Jovi, and we all get applause, and it's Blas Elias from the Slaughter and Trans-Siberian, and that's the biggest applause of the night. Every night we all kind of go, this fucking guy. In the best possible way, because it's like, I mean, I just see that the passion for.
I think people like it. They like the underdog, the guy's hidden in the back.
Well, you're also not phoning it in back there, even it's a Tuesday and like, you know.
I can't phone it in, man. Like it's a downfall too, because they'll tell me like, when I first started in with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, you know, we're going through rehearsals, man. We do like a lot of rehearsal, like intense rehearsal.
Right.
And I, you know, from the first, and I was there, man, I'm like full on playing through all the rehearsal, and they're like, hey, like, maybe you should like, you know, like, it's hard, you know. I was so excited about it, but then I quickly realized, man, like, you know, you have to learn some pacing.
You do. I mean, especially kind of, like. You know, especially when it's like multiple shows a day and all that kind of thing. Yeah, that's bananas.
But it's hard, man. Like, you know, once you get on stage, it's like, you can't phone it in, man. Like,
oh, I know. But that's what I appreciate about, you know, if you're going to say the Rock Vault or something like that, and it's Blas Elias is behind the drum kit, they're seeing Blas Elias. They're seeing the guy that they remember from, you know, videos and whatever else they saw. So I think that that's always been appreciated, that you might feel, and I always kind of giggle when I hear you say, I wasn't up to par. I didn't, you know, you kind of like, I understand it, because we're all kind of like, it's kind of like if you practiced martial arts and now you get into a fist fight on the street, and you're kind of like, you're not quite as ready as you should be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, you kind of feel like I got to go back and do some woodshedding, some training.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've always, you know, I think that you've got, not only are you a talented drummer, you've also got that other thing that is just this engaging, you want to watch that guy. Often, you know, it's the drummer has his own sort of like, people sometimes are just drawn to the drummer, and the right drummer, Tommy
There's
Lee.
something about, I think, like, and that's why people are drawn to live. It's something about seeing a human play music, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, if you ever seen taiko drumming, that's kind of one of my influences in my own drumming is taiko drumming.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's a physical, spiritual, full body thing. And, you know, you could program a machine to do what those guys are doing.
Sure.
But you wouldn't get that emotional, visceral thing seeing these humans like physically pounding these big drums, you know. And it's, you know, it's guitar, bass, whatever. It's like seeing the person playing the instrument.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something about it, man. You can't, you know.
And the meshing of those individuals into this thing, you know, that creates this sound. It's sort of like, it's a magical thing. And I think that, I mean, it's funny to watch kids these days, you know, on YouTube, you're watching like some 6-year-old girl just throw down on the drum kit, and you're like, whoa, where's this coming from? It was never like that when I was a kid, because I mean, it was different when I was a kid, I feel like, because, like, you know, people weren't necessarily saying you should be in a rock band. That's a good option for you. It was kind of like, still kind of like, no, you shouldn't do that. Now guys like us are raising kids to be like, come play the drums. Play this AC/DC song, or this Iron Maiden song, or Rush song, you know. And these kids just get so good at it. And I'm excited to see what that turns into in a world where they keep telling us that
it's you know, it's good. I mean, and I'm surprised all the time when I see young kids playing music, and mostly playing classic songs, you know. I think because there's more to it, you know, to dig into from this class. So it's not so much electronic, you know, but I see these kids, you know, and I'm like, where did they get this? Like, especially from overseas, you know, like there was just a girl who posted a video of her playing Fly the Angels on acoustic and singing. I'm like, wow, this young girl from, like, I don't know, maybe, you know, Brazil or something, but where do they get this? Like, you know, like, where's this
amazing?
from, you know? And these young kids playing, you know, drums, they're, like I said, 6 years old, and, you know, yeah, it's just amazing. It gives me a little hope. You know?
I think so. I mean, again, it's even for the imprint you have left, you know what I mean? Like the fact that you say, like, people are like, when you go to like places like South America or Japan or wherever, and a lot of that music is still alive and well, you know, everything that we've done has an audience. And I think that there's such a resurgence of interest in rock and roll music, you know, hard rock, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a lot of young people who missed it completely. So when they see it, so, you know, it's kind of like, where does this go for you as far as like, I'll let you go soon, because I know that I know you're in the same boat as everybody else. It's kind of like you're watching all your your work just kind of dry up and you're sitting at home. But what do you anticipate? I know you said there's potentially some Slaughter stuff down the line. Is Burning Rain working on new material, anything like that? Do you have any other projects that are kind of?
Not at the moment.
When's the Blas Elias book coming out? I think that's that.
It should do one. I keep thinking, you know, we're talking about Tim earlier. Before Tim died, me and Tim were working on a record, you know, and so I've got some songs that, you know, they're on, you know, cassette and, you know, buried somewhere.
Wow.
I've got a multi-track cassette that I can't get to now, but I've been trying to figure out how to, you know, finish that, because I know he wanted to put some stuff out. So, you know, I may try to get some of that music we're working on out.
There's a lot of us that would love to hear that. Yeah, that'd be great.
And other than that, you know, I talk to Dana and Mark all the time. Like, you know, every now and then, like Mark wants to make music. You know, whether it's slow or not, he continues to make music.
Yeah.
Dana, you know, I kind of start to, you know, see in him now, like, it's to make some music again. So who knows, man? You know.
Well, it is funny when you become heritage, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, classic rock. I don't know. It's like you have a catalog and you can go out year after year after year and play that music and not really, you can kind of take away the stress of having to make new music or whatever you want to call it. But some people like Mark still have that pilot light still going, you know what I mean? It's still creating. And I think people would love to hear some new Slaughter music, especially with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you know, I'd love to do something with Mark, you know, if we can't do something with Slaughter. You know, we've talked about it, you know, it'd be nice to have another Slaughter record, like I said, and Dana's been kind of reminiscing, sending me old tapes of things, and he's worked on it, like Mark says, he's an artist. That's what he does. He makes art, that's what we
Exactly.
do. And
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if
Well,
he doesn't sell millions of records, it'd be great just to have the experience of making music with those guys again.
no one's selling millions of records generally anyway. I mean, like, yeah, some people are, but I mean, in the nature of the record industry is people like, we're musicians, and I always kind of consider it more like a hard hat, kind of put my hard hat on and go out to work kind of vibe. And I'm perfectly happy to do that. I think you're like me. It's kind of like being in Vegas. It sort of offers you the opportunity that there's a lot of things you can do. You walk into a casino, there's probably 5 places in that building that have gigs. There's some guy playing acoustic guitar over there. There's a showroom. There's, a lounge over there. And there's like bands, musicians everywhere. And I love that. I love that as a musician, knowing that that's out there. And my friends say, we're playing at the House of Blues Courtyard on Wednesday night. Come play guitar. We're going to, yeah, hell yeah.
Talent is out there, man. Like this, to go into
Absolutely.
a lounge and see some people that are so talented. It's crazy.
It's amazing. I think that's kind of the best thing I like about Vegas, and what keeps me here is that feeling of, and there's such a community that way too. Like we kind of support each other that way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all your time.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see your face, man.
You too, man. I can't wait to just be together in person. I mean, it's so funny because I've been posting all this stuff. Vote for the Raiding the Rock Vault, best. Yeah. And it's such a surreal thing to be talking about. Like, yeah, that thing that we do, which does not feel like it was 6 months ago, and for all intents and purposes, will return at some point. So, I keep my eyes and ears, especially in Vegas. I think it's a good place to keep eyes and ears on the ground as far as like when shows start showing up. That'll be a good sign. So knock on wood. I can't wait to hear what you do next. And like I said, when this all clears up, we'll have a coffee. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do normal people do?
Go for a hike.
Yeah, there you go. You could be the guy that makes me go for hikes now. Oh man. Well, thanks so much, brother, and say hi to the family for me.
Well, thanks again for having me, and say hi to your family as well.
Absolutely. Talk soon. Keep in touch.
All right, Todd. See you.
Bye-bye.